So this is going to be a short video and kind of a continuation on the other video that I made on Rahu-Ketu aspects. And this is just going to be about Saturn conjunct Rahu in synastry, because this is like something that I have something that I have noticed like a while ago, and I've wanted to make a video on it, but I haven't gotten around to it. And I have been looking for more than these examples that I found. I found 3 major examples of famous couples who have had the Saturn conjunct Rahu aspect, synastry aspect, which pretty much confirm the general, somewhat fatalistic description that most Vedic texts give for this aspect. And which is that there are a lot of obstacles being thrown in front of this relationship, which has the Saturn conjunct Rahu. So, like I mentioned in my Rahu-Ketu video, Rahu represents expansion and Ketu represents diminishment of an energy over time. And so when you have like Rahu conjunct Saturn in synastry, it shows that over time you tend to experience more and more obstacles, material obstacles, as a couple than you were, I don't know, if you were single or if you were in a relationship with someone that you didn't have this aspect with. And a lot of the things, one of the things that I've noticed, and I actually know a few cases of people who have this. I've known them personally, and they have the same thing played out, meaning that people fell in love, but then there were like some insurmountable obstacles thrown in their path, and relationships ended up not materializing. So what happens is that when these two people meet, and even later on as time progresses, they have to face more and more challenges. And one of the things that I've noticed a lot of the times is that when two people fall in love and they have this aspect, one of them is already in a relationship, or both of them are already in relationships. And so automatically there is that the obstacle, quote unquote, of one of them has to separate, or both of them have to separate. Or another thing that I've noticed is people falling in love when one of them lives in an entirely different place of the continent or the planet, and plus all kinds of other material obstacles, like, they can't leave their family situations, or they have responsibilities in other places. So what happens is, like, even though they fall in love with someone else, with the person that they have this aspect with, they just cannot commit to a relationship because there are all these material obstacles that appear in their path. So without further ado, let's just get into like my favorite current example, which is Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. This is like, well, obviously it's been a very talked about thing. Like, I've seen A Star is Born, like loads of people have seen it, I'm sure. And I think these are two people who clearly have like some kind of a undescribable, like undefinable chemistry going on. Whether there has actually been anything between them, who knows? But I think anybody who sees them together, they can see that there is definitely some kind of a mutual affinity there. Definitely bordering on romantic. So I think it would be safe to say that they pretty much like each other. But as most people know, Bradley Cooper I think he was already a father, or his girlfriend was expecting a child when he met Lady Gaga, and also she was engaged. So right off the bat, you have that scenario of having these material obstacles in the path of a relationship. Now, of course, I'm not trying to insinuate that I know anything about what is actually going on there. Now, I have looked at their charts, and I won't get into details, but they also have a lot of aspects that show mutual attraction. And that matters, of course, because Rahu conjunct Saturn in itself does not necessarily point out to an attraction. Oftentimes what happens is two people have a lot of mutual aspects that show attraction, and then on top of everything, they have this particular aspect which makes it difficult for them to get together. Or if they get together, it makes it difficult to maintain a relationship. And so, but I found it like really fascinating when I actually searched the internet and I saw that you have Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper as an example. Like, her Saturn and his North Node are conjunct like within less than 1 degree orb difference. So, yeah. Then this is like a case where, you know, whether something's gonna like blossom there, I don't know. Like, it would be funny to think that maybe at some point there will be something between them, but there's just no way of knowing. Of course, people do have free will. And another case, which is equally telling, is Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. Now, again, when they met, when they fell in love, Brad Pitt was married. In her case, like in their case, sorry, it's her Saturn and his North Node again. Generally speaking, the Saturn person is the person who is more of a grounding person, like has a grounding effect on the North Node, and is also more likely to be first interested in committing to the North Node person. And now, as you may all know, or if you don't know, you can certainly Google it, Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt have had a whirlwind kind of affair. They do have a lot of Moon-Mars aspects with each other. I have looked at their charts at some point, but I don't remember exactly. If I'm not mistaken, they have mutual Moon-Mars squares, and they also have, I think, Moon-Mars conjunct in the composite chart, so it's a very kind of a fiery, passionate sort of energy. And then on top of everything, they have this synastry North Node conjunct. Rahu, aka North Node, conjunct Saturn, which kind of threw a lot of obstacles in their path, and ultimately they ended up separating, because the longer they were together, like the aspect kind of predicts, you know, the more hardships they had to face. First of all, they had to face, you know, all of the scrutiny from the media and the world about how Brad Pitt, you know, left his wife over Angelina Jolie. Then there was the whole thing about how weird they were with having so many children. All of this, like, continuous pressure on them and the relationship, and then, you know, health problems and for Angelina Jolie, and then you know, Brad Pitt having some hidden alcohol problem, all that stuff, you know, eventually took its toll on the relationship, and they did end up splitting. Of course, again, no aspect is a deal breaker because everybody has free will. Now, but what this aspect really shows is increase of hardships, increase of obstacles, the longer two people are together. And the final famous couple that I have found, which is just as telling, if not even more telling than the others, Vivien Leigh and Laurence Olivier. Now, again, if you don't know, you can Google this story, but like, when they got together, and if you don't know, again, Vivien Leigh is the actress who played Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. Laurence Olivier was a great British actor of theater and cinema. And they were kind of like the Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, I think, of their day in the UK. Because when they met, when they fell in love, Vivien Leigh was married, had one child. Laurence Olivier was married, had one child on the, you know, was expecting, like his wife was expecting a child. They started having an affair. Eventually, both decided to leave their respective spouses and get together, and they had a very long-lasting relationship, but ultimately also separated after, I'm not sure exactly how long, but probably like 20 years or something. maybe more, maybe less, I don't know. But they did have a very long-lasting relationship. But again, true to the North Node or Rahu conjunct Saturn energy, the more their relationship progressed, the more hardships was thrown in their path. Like Vivian Lee developed a mental problem, which, according to online sources, took a toll on the relationship because Laurence Olivier could no longer control her, or found it increasingly more difficult to live with her. They also had, if I'm not mistaken, they had failed attempts to get pregnant. I think Vivian Lee had miscarriages. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they had some kind of joint efforts together, like a play or a movie or something that they tried to put together, and it didn't really take off, and they lost a lot of money. So, yeah, that's Saturn at its finest. Okay, so what am I trying to say here? I'm just trying to point out how astrology works and how it can be incredibly accurate. But of course, there is no aspect that is a deal breaker, but it definitely helps if you are aware of these aspects. If you are aware of the fact that there is a thing called Rahu conjunct Saturn that can increase struggles in relationships, and if you want to get in such a relationship, you should be prepared mentally that it is most likely going to take a lot of effort to maintain. Whether it's worth it or not, it's up to you, and it really depends on the other aspects that are happening in the chart. So, thank you for listening. Can't wait to hear your input and your thoughts about this. And of course, if you have any other examples, it would be great to hear. Thanks.